And anyway, so we've been incorporating this for the last 18 months, this German New Medicine concept, into our clinic where we treat probably 80% of our patients are cancer patients. And absolutely, just tremendously impressed, in particular with the precision with which we can zero in on etiology or cause of the cancers, and not just cancer. That Hammer discovered these principles apply to all disease. This is really interesting now. Think about this concept of different octaves of self-devaluation. Mm-hmm. Think of, for example, going away from injuries, think of osteoporosis. Mm-hmm. Think of a woman who goes through the change, the menopause and the estrogen levels decreasing. Estrogen gives us our curviness and the feminine qualities. Think of how a woman feels about herself at that time. You can devalue yourself in a very subtle octave all over, but it goes to your bone, but it's like little microscopic ulcerations, but it doesn't always have to be a universal distribution. It's incredible. It can be very specific parts of the body due to each body mapping out to particular emotions. But anyway, osteoporosis can be attributed to this. But also, of course, you're right. Actually, there was a fellow at a cancer talk with one of our mutual friends, Dr. Lee Cowden, whose history was quite interesting, that he had a true osteosarcoma. And he was an athlete. And he had, I believe, I'm not sure if he might have had to get an amputation or he had a major dysfunctional leg after that for life. And I pointed out during the talk, I said, gosh, this is the kind of thing that could do that is to really, really be angry about that injury and to really devalue yourself and devalue that part of your body because it's blocking you from fulfilling your potential. And of course, he has that for life. So absolutely, it could affect someone for their whole life. Oftentimes we say in energy psychology, we're sick today because we haven't finished something yesterday. And that yesterday could be yesterday, or it could be 50 years. It could be at our time of birth. It could be at our time in utero. It could be even ancestral.
That's fascinating, and because from my understanding of anatomy and physiology, an injury, the normal repair processes should heal most of that within 6 to 8 weeks if it's broken bone or connective tissue, and if it's not, then there's probably some underlying emotional challenge that prevented that healing process to completion.
Yes, that's a good point. I'll just tell a little story. So we've got this fellow with a bunch of cancer, and we're helping him out. And of course, it can be quite trying for the loved ones to support. And actually, it's tough because you're bridging alternative medicine, and sometimes you need to go to someone that does traditional medicine, and it can drive you crazy. Dr. Hammer says it's like taking a hot shower and cold shower. Anyway, so this fellow's wife was really stressed out, and she, but we kind of made a breakthrough. Everything was much better. She had tremendous relief. And she comes in with her husband the other day, and she says, my right shoulder is just killing me. It really hurts. What's going on here? I can barely lift it. And I said, oh, okay. So I think of that two-phase chart, and I say, well, inflammation and swelling and heat, and that's going to be in the repair phase, so she must have repaired something. And I know the history of all the stress she's been under. I said, well, let me tell you about that right shoulder. For you're a right-handed woman, that is, on that side of your body, that is the side of dominance that you embrace, that you would embrace your husband. And you were so worried that you were losing him, that you were losing your embrace on him, that you felt, this is the operative phrase for her in the subconscious, is that I devalue myself in my ability to embrace my husband, to hold him. I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I don't think I am. So the brain began to do a micro-ulceration of shoulder components, whether it's ligaments, joint space, etc. But when she feels the relief, that is when it goes into healing and it swells. But you can upgrade that healing just by simply saying, hey, can you see that? Can you see how there's that connection? And when she did, I just spent 5 minutes on it, and she was already 60, 70% better, just showing her that this wasn't a disease she was suffering from.
Well, That's fascinating because in the conventional model, she would have wound up with anti-inflammatories or arthroscopy.
That's right. And you think of these folks that do the prolotherapy, they're taking advantage of this physiological principle that the body tends to repair things with inflammation, and so they put these proliferants in there to reduce that. But you can also, you can hold hands with the brain, and with an understanding of the physiology, you can drive that reaction. So I had a gal come in with breast cancer a few weeks ago, and I was telling her about all these things, and somehow we got talking about her left wrist, that she had fractured her left wrist 5 years ago. And she held it out in front of her, and she could hardly move the thing. She says, look at that, I can hardly move it. And I said, I'm not one who really believes in accidents. I believe, like Carl Jung, in synchronicity. And I think synchronicity is much more prevalent than we could even imagine. And so knowing the conflict for the wrist part of the body, the wrist conflict, whether you have arthritis of the wrist or whether you fell and broke your wrist, that would have been a synchronicity in my mind. This has to do with mediating a conflict between two parties. That this individual was undergoing a stress in mediating between two parties. So I said, hey, can you remember during that time when you fell and broke that thing? Who were you? There must have been two sides, and you were playing referee. And I'll tell you what, these findings of Hammer and some of these other folks that are doing this, they go far, far and away beyond some of Louise Hay's things. They're just so right on. I mean, hit it right on the nail on the head. So I just talked to her about that for a few minutes, and immediately she begins to, as she's expressing what she went through, she grabs her wrist. Oh my gosh, what's going on here? It's really hurting. What's happening? And I said, no, that's okay. It's almost as if I just injected a proliferant in there. The body is going through a repair phase now. And I said, after 5-10 minutes, I said, why don't you see if it'll move? And she said, no. I said, okay, well, let's give it a little time. As Andrew Taylor Still said, the founder of osteopathy, he said, find it and fix it and leave it alone. Mm-hmm. So we left it alone. She comes back the next day for a follow-up with another doctor, and by golly, she could move that thing full range of motion. It had been locked up for 5 years. But I told her, and it was just a 2-minute intervention, and I said, can you see how you can be stuck in healing if you don't understand? They say one of Dr. Hammer's students says, or at least this is a quote, we're only as sick as our secrets. And so that might be a secret we need to share with somebody, or it could be just the secret that we don't know how our body works.
Hello, this is Dr. Mercola, and I sure hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I did, but I want you to know it's only a small segment of the complete 2 to 3 hour full interview I did. And those interviews are available to members of my Inner Circle. And every month, members of my Inner Circle will receive a complete 2 to 3 hour interview of one of the top health experts in the world who is willing to share their secrets they've learned over a lifetime to help you and your family take control of your health. In addition to that, Inner Circle members also receive a 2-hour DVD full of health information that you can use as an alternative to watching commercial TV, and a 24-page printed newsletters that's mailed directly to your home every month. And as a free bonus, Inner Circle members also receive a copy of my book, Take Control of Your Health, and a variety of other benefits. And it is one of the best values I've ever put together. It's a complete no-brainer. I encourage you to join. There's absolutely no risk at all, because for any reason at all, you are now completely 100% satisfied. My customer service team has clear, specific instructions to give you a prompt refund. So it doesn't get any better than that, and I encourage you to take advantage of this special offer so that you and your family members can start to take control of your health.